Welcome to Take It from the Ironwoman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Ironwoman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Ironwoman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. This podcast is being sponsored by Get Loopy. On episode 41, you can hear the story of Isabel, the co-founder and CEO. Get Loopy, get a 20% discount off your first order. GetLoopy.com. Take it from the Ironwoman again. We only have special guests on the show. Today is Mike. And when I think of Mike, I call him Mike from Central Park. I think he lives there. Whenever I see him, it's in Central Park in New York City. So welcome, Mike, and thank you for being with us. Who is Mike from Central Park?
Thanks for having me, Susan. I've been in New York for 30 years, and I've been running in Central Park for that long. For 19 years, I worked at a running shoe store, Super Runner Shop, and I was also training a lot. I was running a lot. I was also one of the top runners in Central Park. So I was doing well in races. I was working at a running store, and I was running in Central Park a lot. And so I got to know people just like yourself who are in Central Park a lot. And it's the place to be for runners. So I get to see people years and years and years.
I think so. Yeah, it feels like we all live in Central Park because that's where we meet. And I always remember I came with my friend Patty to buy shoes, and we always made sure that you were there because you were so knowledgeable. You made us run on the street, and the shoes that we bought there were always the best shoes. So I want to make sure that we have this on the podcast as well. So we all know how important it is to have the right shoes for the running. So tell the listeners a little bit about your running career, because you said, well, my story is not that important. And I feel like it's always the good runners, the fast runners who are so modest and humble. So maybe it's time to brag a little bit because you have done it. So it's not bragging.
Okay. So let's see. My first marathon, I grew up in New Jersey, and my first marathon was New York City Marathon. It was one I had wanted to run even in high school. And as soon as I finished college, I wanted to run the New York City Marathon. And back then, it was a lot easier to get in the marathon. And if you mailed in your check and mailed in your application, you got in. That was it. There was nothing. All you got to do.
I remember those days. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice and easy. And I had a blast. It was a perfect day to run, and wasn't even watching my watch, and just ran and had a great time. And by the time I got to the Bronx, I felt like I wanted to walk, but I didn't even think my legs were moving, but I just kept going and kept going. And sometime around Central Park, I heard motorcycles, and it was the first woman. So the first woman was Priscilla Welsh, and she was catching up to me. And so I kind of stayed in that vicinity with her until Central Park South. And there was maybe 3 or 4 guys also in this little group. And I ended up finishing in front of her. I finished 100th, and she finished 101st over. And so I wasn't expecting any kind of time. I just wanted to run it. And I ran 2 hours and 30 minutes. And I was a good runner in college, but I guess the marathon soon became my thing. So I I went and spoke to a coach, and in New Jersey, Tom Fleming, who had won the New York City Marathon back in the really early days, he won it twice. So he coached me for a couple of years, and I went from a 2:30 marathon down to 2:24 the next year in New York, and then down to 2:16 the following year in Columbus, Ohio. And I just wanted to put everything into it that I possibly could, and it worked out. And that was really like the beginning of it.
Simply amazing. 2 hours Thanks. And 16. So I remember I ran a half marathon in that time when I first started, right? So Good. Mike is double as fast as I am. So we don't want to intimidate the listeners, but as a spectators of the New York City Marathon, it's always nice to see a person that you know from Central Park. I mean, and I know there is honor if you're one of the first 100 runners. So that's certainly a huge accomplishment when you think initially there were probably 20,000 people and now there are 50,000 people, but 2:16, 2:30, Olympian. So then what was next after the 2:16 in Ohio?
The reason why I started training that hard or that much was the Olympic trials would be in April of 1992. And you need a qualifying time. Back then, the qualifying time was 2 hours and 20 minutes. And so, but you have to do it within a certain amount of time before the trials. So what had happened was the 2:16 that I ran was too soon. So I went back to Columbus the next year because the Olympic trials were being held in Columbus, Ohio on that course. So I wanted to run it. And I liked it. I liked the area. It's a nice flat course. And I ran 2 hours, 20 minutes and 5 seconds. And I can still see it. I could see the clock with a half a mile to go, and I was sprinting to the finish line because I wanted to get under 2:20, and I didn't. And back then, friends had told me that if I wrote a letter to the officials, maybe they would give me. I said no. I wanted to earn that spot. I wanted to do it myself. So I went back to Columbus the next year, and I ran my second fastest marathon of 2:17:57, and then I was able to qualify. But in the process, I got injured in my left foot. So, and that was October of 1991. And the trials were in April of 1992, so I didn't have a lot of time to recover. So I went to the trials in April, and I didn't finish. I wasn't. It didn't go well.
Running at that level is just a very fine line, and you said you were injured, so. It's a mental game. You have to be under the 2:20, and then it might not go so well. So what are the thoughts that are going on in your head? How can you motivate yourself to be positive?
Well, see, that's the thing. Most of the training that I was putting in was, and my coach had even told me this because this is what he was used to. He said, you're always riding that fine line between running well and running injured. And you do what you can and do the best that you can. And whether it's training at the level that you think you need to be training and not pushing beyond that and not pushing overdoing it. And so he was good with that because he had been there. If I was feeling something, he lived close by, so I saw him 2 or 3 times a week at workouts. So if I was looking tired, he would say, take an easy day. If I was injured, I could talk to him about it that day. So it was kind of taken care of very soon. So that was a big help. But yes, it was constantly. But I was also young. I was in my mid-20s. I could do that to that level, training hard almost every day, and I'd still be able to get up and do it the next day. I try to do that now, and it's impossible. I'd have to see a doctor, and I still try it. Yeah, it was always a constant. You see online athletes today. You get to see what they're showing you, what they're going through, the workouts they're going through, and the amount of prep and the amount of strength training, stretching, massage, rest, eating healthy. It's totally consumed on a very good performance several years down the line, and those are the small building blocks towards those. And it does take a long time to build, and it's not a short process.
And tell us about the Olympics. So you were at the Atlanta Olympics and in Sydney.
Yes, Atlanta was in August, so I decided that running a marathon in August in Atlanta was not going to be good or any fun. So I decided to run the 5,000 meters and 1,500 meters on the track. And unfortunately, when I was running my 5,000 meter race, pulled a hamstring just towards the end of the race, and I didn't recover. So it wasn't a very good Olympic. Wasn't happy with that. And Sydney was an amazing experience. I knew it was a kind of a gamble to run the track races, the 1,500 and the 5,000. But the decision to not run a marathon in Atlanta in August was the big reason for that. So the Sydney Paralympics were in early October, which is kind of their spring. So I thought, okay, that won't be too bad. And it really wasn't, although it was a difficult course because the last 2,000 meters were uphill. The Olympic Stadium is on top of a small, not a mountain, but
feels like a mountain at that point.
Yeah, right. And after 40 kilometers with 2,000 meters to go, and that was rough. That was, but finishing in the Olympic Stadium, and there was a considerable crowd there, and it was a huge stadium, but like just having those like Olympic dreams come true, where like people are cheering as you're coming into this, and cheering loudly as you're coming into this huge stadium was pretty impressive. And being the medal ceremony, they waited until the closing ceremonies, which were later that night, and all the recipients of the medals were up on a large stage in front of a full capacity crowd right before the closing ceremonies started. So it was really just amazing. And the kind of support that was out on the course was similar to a large city marathon. It was lined from start to finish with people. It was really amazing. Yeah, it was fun, really fun to do.
Something to take in. And Mike sent me his biography, and then it says like third in the Olympic, and I was like, third means the bronze medalist. So super congratulations. So I think we need to brag. They always say you have to brag because you have done it. So I'm super honored to have you on my podcast.
Sure. Happy to be here.
How I know you is that you are a running coach. So maybe tell us a little bit, how did you get into the coaching? It seems like running is your life. So working in a shoe store, running at that top level. How is the coaching now?
So now, right, with COVID, it's a little bit, it's definitely a little bit different. I coach Front Runners New York, largest LGBT running club in the United States. And we wanted to get back into doing workouts, but also do them safely. And so that, because we also understand it's not about doing races for every runner out there. We need that mental release that the running has always been like a drug to me. It's the cheapest drug out there. I go out for a run and I'm fine for the rest of the day, and I need my run. So for our club, it was more about that, getting out, even if you're, so what we did was we spaced out small groups. USA Track and Field, and Roadrunners Club of America put out guidelines to follow, where you could break down the sessions into groups and space them apart. So you have a few people coming in, and as they're leaving, having more people come in, and so that people aren't, and they're outside. We're in the park, and people are not congregating together too much, and it's really gone well. We started at the beginning of July, and we've had no issues, no problems, no one coming back saying that they're sick, and we take everybody's information and let everybody know if anyone is sick. And no, it's gone really well, and people are really happy about it. The biggest the most popular comment is that people are saying how great this is and how much they needed to just run near people or with other people, and to see people again, out runners. We're so used to running with other people that's been the biggest thing that people have missed.
I think it's, at least for me, when I think about running, it's about the camaraderie with the others and also the competition. So if I go by myself, I'm like, I'm tired today, let me take it easy. Versus you meet with somebody and like, they're a little faster than I am, I want to catch them today. So it's that bug, that competitive bug that gets into you. And I think that's what we all are missing.
Oh, right. Especially with all the races that are canceled. It's what do I train for now? What can I train for now? We need something. We need a little bit of something.
And what does an Olympian give for tips as a last question? What are the tips for runners?
One thing I learned about coaching in New York is typical New Yorkers tend to want to overdo it and push themselves way too much. And so I've been taking a step back with people's training for the last 30 years, 24 years since I've been coaching. They're looking for a coach they thought I got to that level by really pushing my body and pushing it past, and it's really not the case. And my coach was always telling me, relax, take it easy, back off. And as soon as he would, and I try to explain this to people, and they think I'm a little bit crazy. And it's really not about pushing way beyond your limits. It's being consistent and getting to the point where where you feel like you're pushing it, but not racing it. Training is training and racing is racing. And I try to get people to do workouts within races so that they're not always thinking about racing, to take them, unplug their brain from that race and just do a workout and go through it. Do stuff like that, having different things in races to focus on so that they're not always looking at their watch, seeing what their time is and judging themselves based on that.
I think that's a very good tip, because we also say work smarter, not harder. So it's the same with running, right? So it's run smarter, not harder. You have to relax. I know from another Olympian, a Swiss Olympian, he says rest is part of the training. Absolutely. And people forget that, especially as New Yorkers, we want to push as hard as we can.
All the time, every day.
It's not always possible. All right. Thank you so much, Mike. Good luck with your coaching, and I want to see you. And I know you're wearing a mask, so everybody is a role model, and we follow your example. Thank you so much, and congratulations again. Thank you.
Nice talking to you. Bye. See you in the park.
See you in the park. What an honor to have an Olympian on my podcast. The humble and shy people, they usually don't want to say, I have a bronze medal. We need to hear that. What is your accomplishment that you are really proud of? Take it from the Ironwoman. We have episodes every Monday and Wednesday. Don't forget to order Get Loopy, getloopy.com. You get 20% off of your first order. Take it from the Ironwoman. Like us, chime in every week. See you running. See you in Central Park.